The Conker Lady. If you could see me now as a wrinkled old man, you'd find it hard to believe that I was once an angelic young choir boy. A professional choir boy, no less. I was actually paid to sing in the choir of St. John the Baptist Anglican Church in our little seaside village of Old Colwyn on the North Wales coast. I was paid a farthing, that's a quarter of a penny, a farthing for each practice, and a whole penny for the Sunday and special services. It doesn't sound like much now, but for a 9-year-old boy in the late 1940s, that was good money. And I enjoyed it, up until the day I left the choir. I didn't leave voluntarily, I should add. I left because I was fired. It wasn't really just, though, but I was fired anyway. The problem was the sermons. Our vicar droned on, and we whispered and giggled and tickled each other just to relieve the boredom, and we were rewarded by a stern glare from the vicar. One day, I found out that the choir boys at St. Asaph's Cathedral, the senior church in our diocese, were allowed to read comic books during their sermons. What a great idea, I thought, so I led a delegation to our vicar to get a similar allowance. That was to be my first experience of labour-management relations, and as was common at the time, the request was denied, the ringleader terminated. I didn't really mind, although the money was good. I'd now have more time to prepare for the village annual Conker Championship. Of course, you all know what a conker is, right? Well, a conker is a horse chestnut. A buckeye, as it's known over here. Oh, the buckeyes would be pretty pathetic as a horse chestnut. The horse chestnuts are much larger. The game of conkers was played by stringing a cord through the centre of the nut. Then 2 players would face off. One would allow his conker to dangle free, while the other swung his conker to hit his opponent's conker. The pair would take it in turns to attack and defend until one of the conkers shattered. The winner would then move on to the next round and be challenged by another first-round winner. And so it went on until there was just one conker still left intact. But there was some subtle gamesmanship going on. For example, we tried to make the conkers just as hard as possible. We'd bake them in ovens, or we could soak them in vinegar, or we could even soak them in that special liquid that little boys have ample opportunity to get their hands on. I remember once that I soaked my conker in this special liquid in my mother's mason jar, and she found out, and she was not too thrilled, I'm afraid. But the secret was to start with the biggest and freshest conker that you could find. And we were fortunate as there were lots of horse chestnut trees in our village. But the biggest and best conkers were found in the grounds of the Minavon Manor House, close to where we went to school. It was a little like Downton Abbey, but a lot smaller. The most massive tree with the biggest conkers was right in front of the house. But that didn't stop us. We would always set up a lookout, and then we would throw heavy sticks up into the tree to knock down the really big ones. And then the warning cry. "There she is! It's the Conker Lady!" A heavy-set woman, always dressed in black, and leaning on a stout walking stick, had been seen in one of the windows, watching us. We were scared that she'd turn out her dogs loose on us, so we ran. But we'd always go back. The conkers on her tree were just too big to pass up. I was lucky and knocked down a huge one, and I was able to pickle it without my mother finding out, and baked it in the oven, and I won the championship. Even had my name and picture in the local paper, which worried me a bit because I thought the Conker Lady would see it and she would find out who I was. But soon enough the conker season was over, and it was nearly time for Christmas. Christmas was going to be tight that year, as I'd lost my choir boy wages, and I had to buy presents for my mother and my dad, and my sister. Then one of the adult members of the church choir stopped by my house and asked me to join a caroling group he was forming. They needed a boy soprano. I jumped at the chance, as the tip money was usually pretty darn good. we could make several shillings over the Christmas season, far more than I could earn as a choir boy. The way it worked was the group would sing carols at about a dozen or so houses, then finish up at one of the wealthy folks' places. Usually the group would be invited inside for a snack of mince pies or maybe a small piece of delicious Christmas cake. The boys would be offered some hot punch, while the men would take a glass of port or sherry. The first night out we were doing particularly well. We were working the area close to my school. I'd even managed a couple of solos and was feeling pretty good about myself. But then I realized that we were headed for the final house, and it was going to be the Minavon Manor. I tried to leave, but the group's leader yelled at me, "Where you going, lad? We need you to sing the Silent Night solo. That's the lady's favourite." And so I was dragged on into that dreadful place. We filed into a long reception room, and there she was, dressed as always in black, leaning on a stout walking stick, which seemed even stouter than normal. She looked us over and saw me. "I know you," she said, gruffly pointing her cane right at me. And then she started towards me, her cane thumping on the wooden floor. Terrified, I backed up right into one of the adult choristers, stepping on his foot. With a yell, he pushed me back, right into the path of the Conker lady, and she raised up her arms and, much to my amazement, enveloped me in a big hug. "Merry Christmas, Conker boy," she said. Then looking down at me, she continued, "Aren't my Conkers the best? Just like you, I was the Conker Champion of the village when I was young." And she hugged me again. "Merry Christmas, Conker boy." "Merry Christmas, Conker lady," I managed to mumble from the depths of her more than ample bosom. "Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year to you, and to everyone, and to all of you, one and all." And that's the story of the Conker lady.